Good evening, and welcome to our ongoing book study of Rise of the False Gods. Tonight we're looking at who is the boss of you. And I'm going to just grab my copy of the book. I kind of have to relax for a minute because we just heard the news a little while ago that, forgive me if I mispronounce, Tom Seager from a baseball player. I'm not a baseball fan, but I know he's a beloved ball player, and he died from COVID-19. And I know a lot of people are asking, I'm not asking because I already know, that is God punishing us through this horrible, deadly disease? And I would like to remind you that no, God is not punishing us for this. That we are not, as Butterworth said, maybe it was Myrtle Fillmore, we are not punished for our sins. We are punished by our sins. And what sin would it be with COVID? And we remember that the word sin means error. It means missing the mark. We didn't get it right. I think it's at the point with COVID, and I'm not going to go into that tonight because I have addressed it before, and I will address it again in the future. But our response to COVID is it's an error, it's a mistake, and it's a huge dividing force in our world right now. It's the whole world, and you know, the world is doing better than we are, the rest of the countries, and we say, why can't we get it? Well, we can't get it because we can't unite around a particular plan of attack, a particular way of being. Along with hearing about his death tonight from COVID, I just heard a report earlier about a wedding that happened, and it started out with 61 people from that wedding, and the people in their immediate circle were infected. And an 85-year-old woman who had nothing to do with it, didn't go to the wedding, didn't, taking care of herself, she wound up dying from it. Because like tentacles, it reaches out, wherever you go, whoever you touch. And so it's real simple, folks. This is common sense. We have to come together, do what we have to do to beat it. And if we don't, we're not going to have punishment. We're going to have effects. So the cause of our pain and suffering is this horrible dis-ease. And no, God did not intentionally create that, and it wasn't created in a lab. It was created by natural evolvement of particular germs and bacteria. And even then, we remember what we study is metaphysics, that behind the manifestation is a deeper understanding, a deeper cause. I don't go into that anymore tonight because it's enough a hot box, enough of its own. But I do want to encourage you to mask up, wash your hands, and let's beat the bug. I'm tired of it. And yes, I want to travel. I want to see my family. I want to hug my children. And I can't do any of that until we beat this bug. Please join me in working on that. And remember, God is not punishing us through this disease, through this virus. We are, in fact, receiving the effects of the causes we have or haven't sent forth. So we're going to leave that at that right now. And I also wanted to touch, before we move on, I wanted to touch on a couple of things that we talked about last night, which was about remember. And I looked up the video that I was talking about, the documentary. It's so sad because it's not available anywhere anymore. It was a part of a series called Spiritual Cinema Circle, but it was Ryan's Well. And if you ever can get your hands on a copy of Ryan's Well, you'll be glad you did. Great story about a 6-year-old who was the cause behind a well being drilled and serving so many people in Africa. There are so many things we can do. You know, when I was serving in ministry, we would have Brown Bag Sunday, and some of the staff and I would make up brown bags with non-perishable lunches in it. It'd be like cans of tuna and crackers and a little sweet. I always put in a little sweet. Sometimes I put in a little note saying you are loved. Sometimes we'd put in a daily word. Sometimes the little cheese and cracker dip things, and a little juice box. And we would just take those and bring them to the people who were homeless and hungry. And we were really the ones that got fed. We got fed in our spirit when we did that. So we were talking yesterday about how we overcome the power of false gods by doing good for others and not focusing only on ourselves. So we remember a beautiful, beautiful thing. I invite you to write this down and put it on your mirror in your bathroom or somewhere, maybe in the kitchen, on the refrigerator where you look at it all the time. And it says, let each one reach one. Let each one reach one. You can reach one. I can reach one. Together, we make a huge difference in the world. So tonight we're looking at the hierarchy of false gods. Like there's hierarchies everywhere. And it says here, a hierarchy is a group that controls an organization. It has levels based on importance of role. Those in higher positions have more power than those below them. Ranking in a healthy hierarchy is determined by education, experience, and the ability to set and achieve goals for the common good. That is how a healthy hierarchy is run. The higher looking out for the rest. Do you know it works that same way in our very own body? Who has the power? We're going to be looking at that as we go along. There's hierarchies everywhere. Hierarchies are in families, even with your pets. You know, if you have a dog or a cat, I don't know if it's true with fish, but someone is the alpha. The one with the alpha has the power. So you can love with your dog and you could play with your dog and you could do everything. But the one that feeds that dog, that's the alpha. So in the family, it has its own little hierarchy, so to speak. But the hierarchy exists in our lives as well as in everything around us. It's in churches, it's in countless organizations, it's in the families. And we remember that in unity, we like to have it. We have a saying that says, Jesus Christ is the head. Jesus Christ is the head of this family. Jesus Christ is the head of this church. And that doesn't mean that you have to be in a Christian church to have God be first. You might say anything. Every time we put God first, one presence and one power. A hierarchy can be positive or negative, depending on the awareness of the self. A hierarchy focuses on the highest good of the whole. This includes an organization, leadership, and the people who take part. In unity, we teach life is consciousness. That means life is awareness, okay? Awakeness. Right now, I hope you're awake, because I hope I didn't put you to sleep already. But if you are awake, you are conscious. You are hearing words. You are processing what I am saying. And I hope you are ingesting some and going, And if it doesn't work for you, you're letting it go, okay? So that's what's happening right now. You are conscious. If you fall asleep, you are not, your awareness is not conscious. So you're gone. If you were passed out, if whatever. In order to be conscious, conscious awareness is what we talk about when we talk about life is consciousness. Sometimes we go to sleep in a different way. We get so sucked into our stuff that we cannot embrace the thought that good is going to come. It will come. So we want to remember to keep our consciousness lifted up. Now, I made notes on the sideline. When I like a book, and I wrote it, but it's not my stuff. It's learned over the years that I'm sharing. But in our lives, who's at the top of the ladder? Who's the highest in our hierarchy? Hopefully, it's our higher good, it's our higher power, it's God, and it's not our ego, because our ego is not necessarily going to take us everywhere we want to go. Is fear in charge of our life? Is fear the boss of us? Or is power the boss of us? It's not about you have to be fearless so much as you act in the face of fear. You still do the right thing. It's not easy. But who does that make the boss of you? It makes your higher self the boss of you. So it goes on. The hierarchy of the whole, the business, government, church, etc., expresses the collective state of mind of the members of the whole. This is really important, so I want you to listen to this, okay? Whatever the opinion or belief of a majority of the people hold on the human level predicts the outcome. So the more people that hold a thought at the same time, that is a cause, and it sends back an effect. And that is for better or worse. This is why my whole focus on Rise of the False God is going from ignorance to enlightenment. Because we want to be in our right mind, consciously, in order to have the life and the world we want. There's a scripture that says, where two or more agree on a thing, it is so. Well, that sounds good. So if I want a new car, I'm going to say to you, will you agree with me that I'm going to get a new car because I need a new car? Now, I'm just making that stuff up because I got the greatest little car right over there in my parking area. So, car, don't be offended. All right. So that's very good, but it works another way. If two or more agree on something that is not positive, that is true, that is not true, it's true for them. This is what's so wrong about things like gossip. If our lower nature is taking us into gossiping, being mean to someone, you are taking another person and shaping their opinion about whoever you are gossiping about. You're affirming or making firm something that could not be true about them. That's why we always have to have the facts before we open our mouth. And if you wouldn't say what you're going to say to the person themselves, it's not a good idea to say it to someone else. Please remember that. If you're mad at somebody, don't go tell somebody else you're mad at them. Go to the person you're mad at, because that's the way you're going to fix it. That puts Christ at the top of your hierarchy. When we say Christ, we talk about the spark of divinity that each one of us has. So we put Christ in charge, we put our higher self in charge of our life. And that's how you overcome. Let God be the boss of you, because God is all good. Why wouldn't we all want all good to be the boss of us, right? The founding fathers of our country kept looking at the good of the whole. That's what we do. Then we go through what we're going through now is an election process, and all kinds of things are coming out about how it should go. What you want to remember is that we're making a decision for where our consciousness is to go. And so I don't like to make a lot of political comments, and when I speak, I want to make sure that I stay as impartial as I can be. So what I'm going to say is this: whoever wins the upcoming election is going to be a reflection of the majority, the way the majority of people think and feel. So that is really, really powerful. And it's why we always want to stick to truth, speak our truth. So whatever cause goes out, the effect's going to come. It's going to be what we need to learn for our next steps of the journey. For better or worse, align yourself with good and know that no matter what's going on out in the world, as long as you keep focused and keep the boss of you being all good, God, and even your inner spark of divinity, Christ, that you cannot go wrong. You may have hard times, but they're all going to come out okay. Okay, the one thing we always want to remember is to avoid the hunger for personal power. We are powerful beings, okay? That's going to be without any question. We are very powerful people, but we want to always use our power for the good of the whole, not for our selfish interests. Always look out. We have introspection to see how we're aligned with all that is good, and then we press into the universe the wonderful ideas and the love and, all that we vision to create a better world and a better life for ourselves. Sometimes we don't do the right thing. We are currying favor to our lower selves because we don't want to lose face. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to be called a loser. And Lincoln spoke at the Gettysburg Address and said that we are a government of, by, and for the people. So if anything is going in a way that we don't want to, in our country, we have a hierarchy that includes, all the leadership levels. But the biggest amount of power is actually in the hands of the people. How do you like that? Because we're in a place where we can have our vote. And so, but remember, whatever the outcome is, all this power, where is our consciousness? Are we aligned with truth? Are we aligned with all that is good? Or are we aligned with what's in it for me? What's in it for me is not the best way to go, because we are a part of an inseparable whole. Okay. Then let's take a look at the hierarchy in religion. Now, I am I originated in the Catholic tradition. I am a Christian, but I am a metaphysical Christian, and I see God in all faiths. So I'm going to speak in terminology that I have grown with, and so I have to express. I've never I've never been a part. I know that there is leadership in the temples and in the mosques and even in the Buddhist temple. So I understand that, and but I can only do it in a Christian way because that's the way I was raised and that's what I know most about. So in the traditional church, we have God leading. God is the overseer of the whole thing. And then in a Christian church, we have Jesus, Son of God. Then we've got popes, the Pope and monarchy. Then we've got bishops and priests, which all have their own ranking, and deacons. And then we can get into Sunday school teachers and board members. And so there's always that hierarchy. And what we have to remember is we want to keep the hierarchy focused on good. Even churches. I know there's a lot of people that have been hurt by their church, by their background. I actually know a woman. I bowled with her once, and we were on a team together, and she got told to leave in the middle of a service. She got called out, and she got kicked out of the church. Can you imagine someone getting kicked out of the church? Boy, you come out of that, scarred, don't you? If your church is making you feel bad, evil, worm of the dust, I think maybe you want to go to another church because you are a child of God. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. All God's children make mistakes. But that doesn't make you, because you make a mistake, doesn't make you evil, okay? Even religion can do things that are not good. And they do it in the name of God. So if I were to say to you, what religion does, evil to people? What kind of evil? And a lot of you, I'll give you a minute to think of it. Come up with your own answer. I'll just have a little sip of water. So if you would say what religion harms people, you'd probably be very likely to say probably Muslims. You hear a lot about the Islamic people chopping off people's heads and stuff like that. You might say that. You might say the atheists like Hitler, who killed millions of Jews. But, we in the Christian church had things like the Crusades. And in the Crusades, the goal was to force conversion on people. They had to accept God, the Christian God, the Jesus God. And so what's really sad is when this happens, a lot of the beauty in the other religions. So yes, there's the Crusades, and then there's another one, which is the Inquisition, where Jewish people were being forced to convert to Christianity. And, I always say, while I'm talking about, my beliefs and how I see it, and I have no intention of converting anybody, because you're supposed to be on your path. There's not enough room for you on my path. You got your own path. And it may be going in the same direction. We may be going side by side. You cannot really convert someone. You can tell them that's the way it is, and maybe you can bully them into, going to your church, doing what the church tells you to do, following their rules. But any real conversion comes from within your soul. And that is from any time we have a spiritual awakening. That's what a conversion is. It's that moment, that aha moment. And you know what? You may have more than one in your life. And that's wonderful because, we started out in, they didn't have preschool back in my days, but the kids today start out in preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, junior high school, and so on. So we are growing. And as we grow and develop spiritually, we may find ourselves on a different path than the church of our origin, the church that our parents go to. And it's really sad to think of the people um, who lose family members. I had some friends in seminary, and their parents were from traditional Christian owned. And in the Jewish tradition, a lot of people, if you marry someone who is not Jewish, or if you uh, heaven forbid convert to Christianity or anything, I mean, that is, you are dead to me. I don't think that was God's plan. I think we were all meant to have a relationship with God. So a false God can be a church. And a false God can be our church if we say, my church is the right church and your church, you're going to hell. One day I was sitting in Starbucks. That was the thing, was ministers were told to go do some work at Starbucks. Bring your computer and maybe a couple books or whatever, and sit there and do your work, and you might get a chance to mingle with people. And I met someone, some people started a conversation, and I had these cards. Okay. Remember what I said, you may not agree with everything I do. Just listen, and what you don't like, let it roll off your back. I was planning a special series in church, and it was called The Game of Life. And I had these cards. I found these cards somewhere, and they were amazing, and they're called, it's a get out of hell free card. Like when you play Monopoly, you have a get out of jail free. It was a get out of hell free card. And it had the little guy, like from the Monopoly thing, like he's jumping out of hell. I thought that was adorable, and I think it was a great conversation starter for people to say you can change your mind and grow and, get yourself out of the hell that you've created, because most of us do create our own hell. Well, I got told straight out by some men that were sitting near me that I was going to be thrown in the lake of fire. And, well, I guess that didn't work out too well. But here I am, still doing my thing. So a real church, what is a real church? I believe, because wouldn't you say that church is a very important part of the hierarchy of importance in your life? And who's the boss of you? Maybe the church is to be the boss of you. I think that the church that feeds your spirit. I've told most people that the first time I walked into a Unity church, it was like, oh my gosh, there are people who think the way I think. And that was in August. 4 months later, I got a call to ministry. And 2 years later, I went to school, and 2 years later, I was ordained. So for me, that was my path. But because I see God in all faiths, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't learn and love people of all faiths and try to learn about their faiths, because it is amazing. So if God is the boss of you, if Spirit is the boss of you, if your own spark of divinity is the boss of you, you don't have to be down on anybody else's church or beliefs. You will learn. The more you learn about other faith groups, the more your love for and experience with God and your spirituality grows, and you grow and you develop and you blossom and you become that powerful child of God that you are. So if we look again at false gods, we ask, who do we worship? And remember, we talked about it before. The word worship is like worthship. What do you give worth to? Look at your life. You have a journal? Go back, look a couple of years back, see if you've grown and changed since then. So whatever you give worth to is what you're going to give your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your time, your attention, and your money to. because that is what's most important to you. So hold that in mind. And remember that false gods are false good. We may think they're out for the best of us. We might think that we can get away with spending more than we can afford to pay back, but it's a false good. One of the best goods is to live in alignment with integrity. My dad was totally against credit cards. Don't get credit cards. They're not good. You're going to get in trouble. Yada, yada, yada. That's what I think. Yada, yada, yada. One day I got a credit card. I was already a mother of 3 or 4 kids. And I wound up using that credit card. And it was very tricky because what it would do is it was like attached to your, well, let's say your bank account. So if you overdrew your bank account, it would take not the amount it needed, like an overdraft account. It would take $100 and put it in that account. So every time you overdrew, next thing I knew, and this was like 45 years ago, maybe more. So I wound up with spending, like having a $1,500 credit card bill. And then I didn't have the wisdom to pay it all off, to pay it. I was just paying the minimum payment. I had that card. I lost so much money. I thought, oh my God, Dad is right. The credit card isn't good. But over the years, I learned that I can have one, pay it off on time, never pay interest, and get points. Maybe it's not the best, but at least I'm doing it the right way now. But one of my most joyful moments was when I was 18 and I bought my parents for Christmas. I bought them one of those big old console record player radios. And so it had a radio and it had a record player and a cabinet, and you put your records in, and I put it on layaway. So I would go to the store. I would go down there. We had a little plan, my sister and I. My sister would meet me at work. We would go to dinner. I would pay my money on the console, and then Christmas Eve, the delivery people are bringing it in, and I'm going, Mom, Dad, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. And they're bringing it, and my father's going, I told you not to get yourself in debt. What did you? And I said, Daddy, it's paid for. Daddy, it's paid for. I'd say it like 4 times till he got it. That is so much better than having a knot in your chest every time a credit card bill comes in, or every time the credit card bills come in, or being in debt to anyone. So there's times when we have to have debt, but I'm going to tell you something. If you don't need to have debt, don't have debt, because it's only a false god that can tell you that you will be able to pay off something you really can't. Okay, there are a lot of antichrists that appear to be very powerful, even spiritual people. And here's another thing. All lawyers are not sharks. I know some, I love them. All politicians are not crooked. I know some, I love them. All ministers are not pedophiles. I am one, and I can assure you, not all ministers are pedophiles. So we can't pigeonhole and box people in and call them things. But there are charlatans out there in every field, people that don't know what they're doing, people that'll just take your money without caring what they're doing. And the minute we take our faith and take it from having faith in God to putting faith in this guru or this, and I'm not talking about valid gurus, I'm talking about, let me see if I put it some way, voices of pseudo-authority. They really don't have anything to back up the authority they claim. For a price, they operate workshops and retreats of little substance. So just because you paid a big amount for a workshop, a retreat, or a series of classes, that doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of good out of it. So make sure you're knowing what you're doing. But a lot of people have put a lot of money into unsavory sources, even in the name of God. Or a lot of them, I think we talked about it before, prosperity teachers, get rich quick. God, don't do a get rich quick. Sometimes it's better to, save a nickel a day and eventually get rich instead of trying to blow your retirement on something that was really not such a good idea. False gods curry favor to our ego. They woo us and they tempt us and they seduce us to worshiping something personal as opposed to something spiritual and principle. There is a great lure to pleasure. We all like pleasure. I mean, we sell down in the campground store, we sell these little fluffy hedgehogs. They're toys. And every time I walk by them, I have to kind of pick one up and, ooh, that's so fun. I'm tempted to buy it, but the last thing I need is a stuffed animal, okay? Let's just be honest here. But the temptation is there. That temptation could be for anything. It could be for a cigarette. It could be for excessive food or alcohol or just so see that all is pleasure. This is one of the tidbits for today. I really want you to get this, okay? There's pleasure and there's happiness. Very often pleasure is good at the moment, right in that little moment, and then it's gone. Happiness is always there. Pleasure sometimes has very bad after effects. Happiness has no unpleasant side effects. I can use the best example by overeating or over drinking, especially people, if I will be perfectly honest, I've had a hangover in my life and it's not good at all. So while it was pineapple wine. So while I was drinking the pineapple wine, and this was like 50 plus years ago. So I'm drinking the pineapple wine. I felt pretty good. When I was sick and puking it back up, I wasn't feeling so good. The pleasure was gone. And when I had the hangover the next day, so I had this extended misery for this couple of hours of pineapple wine. But think about that in any case. Even if you're thinking about going on a vacation, what's more pleasurable than going on a vacation? But if it's a vacation you can't afford, and you're going to be thinking while you're out there looking at the Colosseum or at the pyramids or at the beach in Tahiti, and you're thinking about paying those bills when you get home, that is putting pleasure before happiness. If you save up your money and you go on vacation and you know what you got to spend and you stay within your limits, you can really enjoy it. It happens on all levels. If you lie, if you tell a lie or you gossip and then you're afraid you're going to get caught, blah, that's horrible. Nobody wants to have to go through that. So look for happiness, not just pleasure, okay? We can have pleasure as long as we are staying in alignment with all that is good and true and positive. Okay, I just want to read this. The subtle ways and means false gods use can dull our sensitivity to its sinister nature. That's when we don't know we're getting in trouble. We think we're doing on the right track. Spiritual principle, however, remains active. We stumble around chasing the next emotional or physical high, insatiable and miserable. I understand these are harsh words, and they're also a powerful wake-up call when we realize that we're under the influence of false gods. to experience the false gods being the boss of you means you are being influenced. There is an inflowing of lower consciousness that is affecting you, whereas when you stay on the spiritual path, which is not devoid of pleasure, okay? I want to be real clear about that. I have plenty of pleasure in my life. When we are inspired, so we want to be inspired, not influenced. And that's when we and God and Christ or Buddha or the Great Spirit, however you want to say it, is the boss of us. I hope you enjoyed our study group tonight. Please feel free to make comments, ask questions. If you came in late, you can go back to the beginning and watch it in a little while. It'll take a little bit for it to upload again. If you see my YouTube version, be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any. And please, I want your questions and comments. Thank you. And God bless you. And have a stupendous night and a wonderful tomorrow. And I'll see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.